I've been dating a widower for almost 7 months. We met at my younger child's birthday party. At the time, I didn't even know he was a widow. It was only 3 months after her death. 3 months later, we started dating. The first year anniversary is coming up, and he broke up with me because it hasn't even been a year. When I was upset, he spent Easter with her family rather than us. Almost every weekend we're together, and we both have kids. My oldest takes all 3 younger ones to school every day. His youngest has told the whole daycare that his big sister takes him to school. He's painted the outside of my house, my kitchen, came to fix my oldest's car after work, picks up my youngest when I can't get there on time, etc. We seriously do regular couple things for each other and help each other out with our kids. And we treat them as our own. My ex is completely out of the picture. He's called me to go over when his daughter missed her mommy, and she wished I lived with them, just so I could give her hugs and mommy loving. And of course, I go, and my kids understand. He attended college signing day for the big kid, went to her games, my little ones play with the after-school program. Anyways, we've definitely brought our kids together, and on regular days act like 2 single parents blending our families. And it's serious. Then on holidays, he acts like this. I understood the winter holidays. Then now it's her death anniversary. And he's too sad to be in a relationship. But he still wants me to act like mommy to his kids. Tonight I cooked and was waiting on him to put his youngest down, to bring him food. He said he wanted to hang out and talk. Then he asked if I'd stay the night with him. Mind you, he broke up with me because the year anniversary is coming up. All day today he's been talking about his grief and he's not okay. So I called him out and said, "Oh, you want to have intimacy with me in y'all's bed, but you're so upset over this year anniversary that you needed to break up with me." He read my message and stopped replying. I tried calling him and no answer. I might have sent an ugly message about not contacting me again. This is just about intimacy, which I've told him before if that's what it is. Then say it, but stop letting our kids be involved in together as a family, because it even affects the high school senior. He swore he loved us and cared about us, and it's not intimacy. He wants us to grow as a family. Until Easter. Am I wrong for feeling disrespected that I can't meet his family, friends, etc.? But we have a wild Brady Bunch blending our families together situation going on. Or that he broke up with me, but still wants me to act like mommy to his kids and have intimacy but not be in a relationship. They were together 18 years, and he didn't propose until she was diagnosed with cancer. He only acts sad on holidays and when there's an audience. My oldest says he didn't really actually love her, but it's a show. And at first I said no, he loved her. But I'm starting to think his sadness is a show, and he wants to pretend he's the sad partner, even though he had no problem approaching me 3 months after her death and pursued me for 3 months before we started dating. Ugh. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So, let me get this straight. You met this dude and subsequently found out he was with his deceased wife for almost 20 years until she died, checks notes of cancer 3 months prior. Then, within 3 months of meeting, you start dating, and not just the take it slow kind of thing. No, it was the let's introduce our kids and blend our families level of dating. And then you act shocked that he's still grieving at the 1-year anniversary of her death. Like, he should be over it. Yes, you are wrong for feeling disrespected in this case. You obviously don't understand grief and what it does to people, especially with what you've admitted to saying to him and the conversations you're having with your kids. Why are you bringing and keeping your children around someone who had been going through so much and so soon? You're acting like he's a villain when he's clearly suffering. Comment 2. Yikes, you sound insensitive and cold. He is not ready for a relationship. He is right. It hasn't even been a year. He is turning to you for comfort and to distract from his grief, but he isn't in love with you. It's also understandable that he and his kids are spending holidays with his kids' grandparents. OMG, can you imagine their pain if he inflicted you on them? Let go or accept the relationship as it is. Would you want your kids and him to just replace you if you hadn't been dead for even a year? Listen to yourself. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around. So where do I even start? After that whole mess with him ignoring my calls, things just spiraled. My oldest, the one who drives the younger kids around, got into a huge fight with his youngest at school. It was bad. The little one was saying stuff about how I wasn't their real mom, and my kid just lost it. I mean, fists flying, teachers pulling them apart, the whole 9 yards. I had to leave work to deal with it, and guess who was nowhere to be found? Yep, him. When I finally got a hold of him, he said he was dealing with something and couldn't talk. Turns out he was with his late wife's sister, who's always been a piece of work. She's been telling his kids that I'm trying to replace their mom, which is ridiculous. I've never wanted that. But she's been whispering in his ear, and I think that's why he's been acting so hot and cold with me. A few days later, he shows up at my door, out of the blue, with this sob story about how he's lost without me, and the kids need me. I should have slammed the door in his face, but I didn't. I let him in and we talked for hours. He cried, I cried, and it felt like we were getting somewhere. But then, as he's leaving, he gets a text from her, the sister-in-law, and I see it. It's not just talking. They've been sleeping together. My blood ran cold. I confronted him, and he didn't even deny it. Said it was a mistake, that he was confused and grieving. I was so angry I could barely see straight. But then, he said something that just broke me. He said his kids had overheard us and knew about the affair. They were devastated, and he begged me to help him fix it. I was torn between wanting to protect those kids and wanting to throw him out of my life for good. In the end, I agreed to talk to them, to try and smooth things over. I felt weak, desperate even. But I couldn't stand the thought of those kids hurting more than they already were. So I sat them down, told them that adults make mistakes, but that we all loved them and would always be there for them. They cried, I cried, and he just stood there, looking like the mess he was. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my ex, who's been out of the picture for years, decides to make a grand re-entrance. He heard about the fight at school and wanted to play the hero. Showed up at my house, making demands, saying he was going to take the kids. It was a nightmare. I had to get a lawyer involved, and it's been back and forth ever since. Through all this, he's been trying to make it up to me, fixing things around the house, taking the kids to school, acting like nothing happened. But I can't look at him the same way. Every time he touches me, I think of him with her. And yet, I can't seem to cut him out completely. The kids are attached, and I guess a part of me is too. It's been very eventful, and I'm just trying to hold on for the kids' sake. But I'm tired, you know? Tired of the drama, the lies, the betrayal. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm hoping for some peace, some normalcy. Anyway, thanks for reading. My boyfriend calls me dumb and cheats with my friend. But when he tries to plan our wedding, I cancel it and announce my pregnancy with a twist he never saw coming. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 10 months, and I had sprained my knee falling down the stairs. My boyfriend was coming over, and when he came in, he rubbed me on the head and said, "My little dumb blonde." I had been a bit emotional at that time, so I didn't react in the best way, but I asked him why he said that. I was expecting him to say it was a joke or something, but instead he said, "What? You're blonde and you are pretty dumb." That's literally a dumb blonde. I asked him why he would say I'm dumb, and that it was actually quite hurtful. I'm not the smartest person, I know that, but I did still do well at school, and I'm getting higher education, and I know neither of those are much of a reflection on my intelligence. But I don't think I'm dumb. I'm just not very clever. He said it wasn't that big of a deal, and that people like dumb blondes. I also should say that one of the reasons I find it so strange is that my friends are mostly blonde. The people I went to school with are mostly blonde. And my family is almost all blonde because we're Scandinavian. Blonde hair is not unusual or a rarity. And if anything, I'm not that blonde. Some of my friends have very light hair, almost white, whereas my hair is on the browner side. I then said that he's blonde as well, but he said it's different for girls. He then said it's the same with my friends and how we're all ditzy blonde airheads that prance around with daddy's money and think you're better than everyone else. I asked him what on earth he was talking about and how this has anything to do with this. I told him, I don't like the way he's talking about my friends and me. And he shouldn't be associating my intelligence with my hair color. He sighed at me and said it wasn't a big deal, and that I'm a total airhead, and that apparently my friends are all idiots and full of themselves, and that he couldn't stand the way I act with money, and that was influenced by my friends. Also, that it was apparently really annoying watching me be so dumb constantly. I asked for an example of that, and he said how I can just go with my airheaded friends to Mallorca or Australia, while some of us have to work at home instead. I said that I didn't realize it bothered him so much that I do that, and that he knows it's just a once-a-year thing. It's not a big deal. I just told him that I didn't like the way he spoke to me, and that I would rather have a constructive conversation instead of him just insulting me. He then just insulted me more, saying that I thought I was so mature because my father had coddled me. But I was an immature idiot who wouldn't even sleep with him. I don't even know how this has any significance to the whole thing. But he said it has everything to do with it, and that I'm selfish and only care about myself. And it's been 10 months. It's like he resents me, and I don't even know why. I would have thought something like this might happen in marriage, not with someone you've only dated for 10 months. I know I'm not very intelligent or mature, but I've always tried to be a good person. I don't know why he took this whole thing so badly. I didn't want it to be a big deal, but I also didn't want him saying those things to me. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He is a sexist little shoot. He does not see you as his equal intellectually. You are just a bit of arm candy, an intimacy toy. That is a real old-fashioned 1950s sexist stand-up comic routine, like the little wifey jokes. This is ingrained in him. Probably his friends and family all think like this too. To be honest, at your age, you should not be contemplating putting up with this. There are literally thousands of other people you can date who are not brought up like this. You can do better, and you should be aiming higher. Leave him behind. Comment 2. Oh my God. How many different ways can the guy wave red flags around before you run? He is awful. You do not deserve to be treated like that. I do not even treat people I do not like that badly. Run, sweetie. Run. Well, your knee is sprained, so limp away. Limp away quickly. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around to hear more about my life. So, after that whole mess with my boyfriend calling me a dumb blonde, things got even more out of hand. A month later, I found out he was cheating on me with one of my friends. Yeah, the same friends he called ditzy blonde airheads. I was devastated, but when I confronted him, he shrugged it off like it was nothing. Said it was just a fling and that I was overreacting. Can you believe that? I was so angry I wanted to leave him. But then he lost his job. Suddenly he was all apologies and sweetness, saying he needed me. And I felt bad for him, you know? So I stayed. I helped him look for work, and he found a new job pretty quickly. But then, he started acting like he was the boss of me, telling me how to spend my money and who I could hang out with. One night, he went through my phone while I was sleeping. He saw texts from a guy from my class who was just asking about homework. My boyfriend woke me up yelling and accusing me of cheating. I tried to explain, but he wouldn't listen. He stormed out and didn't come back until the next day, acting like nothing happened. Then, my best friend told me she was moving away. She got a great job offer across the country. I was happy for her, but also sad. She was my rock through all this craziness. Before she left, she sat me down and told me she was worried about me. She said my boyfriend was no good and that I deserved better. I just laughed it off, and he has his moments. But we've been through a lot together. Last week, my boyfriend proposed. Out of the blue, with a ring and everything, I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was screaming to say no, but then he started crying, telling me how much he loved me and couldn't live without me. So I said yes. I guess I thought it would fix things. But now, he's planning the whole wedding, and I feel like I'm just along for the ride. He's decided we're getting married in 3 months, and he's already booked the venue without asking me. My family is worried, but they're trying to be supportive. They don't really know the half of what's been going on. And just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, I found out I'm pregnant. I haven't told him yet. I'm not sure how he'll react. Part of me is scared he'll be angry or think I did it on purpose. But another part of me hopes this might make things better between us. So that's where I'm at. Engaged, pregnant, and still with the guy who called me a dumb blonde. My friend was right. I probably do deserve better, but I can't seem to leave. I keep thinking about the good times and hoping they'll come back. Thanks for reading. My husband wants to bring his entire family to live with us. But I put my foot down and sent them packing with charity help instead. So my husband, who is 35 years old, is a very sweet person. His dad abandoned the family when he was 7 years old, so he stayed with his mom and little sister. He grew up believing he had to be in charge of them because he was the man of the house. Nowadays, we live in California, and his family lives in Latin America. He sends money to his mom, she doesn't work, and his sister, who is a single mom with 2 kids. He also helps his sister financially. Recently, he mentioned to me that he would like to do all the paperwork and bring them to live with us, his mom, sister, and 2 nephews. I don't agree and I don't want to. I told him to go ahead if he has the money to provide housing and all the necessities for them while they adjust and so on. But I made it clear that I was not going to work extra for our plans and goals to support a whole other family that I didn't choose to have. One of the reasons I don't support that is because I don't believe he has to be responsible for them anymore. His sister is a grown-up woman who decided to have 2 kids. And I'm not willing to give up the peaceful life we have. We have no kids, and even go through financial difficulties because my husband feels he's still responsible for his family. Am I being too selfish? How do I tell him that is not a good idea? I already said I'm not okay with it and told him I was afraid that could put our relationship in danger. Thank you all for your responses and advice. It gave me a lot of clarity already. Here are the answers to some of the questions some of you had. My husband is the one that gave me the green card, not the other way around. We both are from the same culture, and we both grew up in our country, but met here in the US. We had a very different family experience while growing up. Also, his family doesn't live in poverty because he supports them. They do fight a lot, though, and my husband thinks that by him being close, that could change. And no, his sister doesn't have any degree or education and doesn't speak English. Lastly, after I told him my point, he stood quietly and nodded at me. We might continue the conversation this week. Second edit. Once again, thank you all for your input and advice. So here's what happened. I eventually had the conversation with my husband again. He was a little hurt and said he thought I was going to be more flexible, but he also understands and accepts my position on the matter, since we do share most of our life expenses. We talked about costs, money, life changes, among other stuff, and came to the conclusion that it is a lot better for them to stay there. I suggested therapy to him, but it feels like I touched a nerve. I'll talk to my therapist and ask her for a better approach to him on this. A nerve that needs to be touched, so he stops feeling that responsibility. But, well, that's a whole other issue. And I also must clarify that the fact that he sends money to his family is absolutely not an issue for me. He's the one working for it, and up to this point, he has never put our marriage in second place because of this. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I recently opened my home to 3 people, including 1 child temporarily. They are not family, but it is beside the point. It completely changes your family dynamics. Also, his mother will be in her 50s, if not older, most likely set in her ways and in the mindset that she is the matriarch of the family. So what she says goes, and how she does things is the best. There is so much more to this than just paperwork. Also, it's a ton of extra money to pay for 4 extra people in California, unless he plans on keeping that alive, providing the bare minimum possible. You have every right to say no to this, and he needs to understand that this is a 2 yes, 1 no kind of situation. Comment 2. No, you are not being selfish. Unfortunately, he has made a decision and you have no say. Split your finances. Get your paycheck in your own account. Split your savings down the middle and put it into a savings account of your own. Pay for joint expenses in a joint account. Keep saving as usual. When they come over, I guarantee that if he needs money for them, he will dip into joint expenses. So don't subsidize for his decisions. Split groceries by the number of people in the house. Don't pay for their groceries. Any utilities should be split the same way. He wouldn't add 4 dependents into your household without taking your income into account. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around to hear more about what's been going on. So, after we agreed it was best for his family to stay put, things took a turn. My husband's sister called, crying, saying her youngest was sick and the medical bills were piling up. Without a second thought, my husband wired a hefty sum. I was upset, not because he helped, but because we had just agreed on setting boundaries. Then, a few days later, I got a call from a friend back home. Turns out, the sister wasn't using the money for medical bills. She had thrown a massive party. I was fuming. When I confronted my husband, he refused to believe it. He said his sister would never lie to him. But I had photos, and when he saw them, he couldn't deny it anymore. He was embarrassed, and for the first time, he saw what I'd been seeing all along. His family was taking advantage of his kindness. He decided to cut them off financially. It was a hard decision, but he knew it was the right one. But then, his mom called. She was furious. She accused me of turning her son against her and his sister. She said I was destroying their family. I couldn't believe it. I had supported my husband through everything, and this was the thanks I got. My husband stood by me, though. He told his mom that it was his decision, not mine. But she wouldn't listen. She said she was going to come to the US to set things straight. We both knew she couldn't afford the trip, but the threat was there. A week passed and things seemed to calm down. Then, out of nowhere, we got a knock on the door. It was his mom and sister with the 2 kids in tow. They had somehow managed to get visas and plane tickets. They expected us to take them in. I was in shock. My husband was too. We didn't know what to do. They had nowhere to go, and it was clear they had burned their bridges back home. We let them stay for a few nights, but it was chaos. The kids were wild, the sister was ungrateful, and his mom was constantly criticizing our home and lifestyle. It was too much. I told my husband they had to go. He knew it too, but he felt trapped by guilt and obligation. That's when I took matters into my own hands. I found a local charity that helped immigrant families. They offered temporary housing and job training. It was perfect. I convinced my husband to talk to them. It wasn't easy, but he finally agreed. His family was furious. They called us heartless, but we knew it was for the best. The charity helped them get settled, and they started to build their own lives here. It's been quiet since then. My husband and I are slowly getting back to normal. He's still dealing with the guilt, but he's starting to see that he can't fix everything for everyone. And I'm just relieved that our home is our own again. Thanks for reading. It's been a rough ride, but I think we're finally on the other side of it. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.